Today, we're diving deep into the long and kind of shadowy history of influence. We're going to go from secret government programs that were literally designed to crack the human mind, all the way to the algorithms that are, right now, shaping what you see, what you feel, and even what you do every single day. So, let me just ask you straight up. Can your mind be controlled? It feels like a question from a spy movie, right? But is it just fiction? Well, the story we're about to unpack suggests that for decades, some of the most powerful organizations in the world have been trying to make it a reality. And to really get it, we have to start in a time of intense, global paranoia. You have to go back to the Cold War. And this wasn't just some political rivalry. It was viewed as an existential struggle for the future of humanity. There was this crippling fear that the Soviets had figured out these advanced brainwashing techniques. So, in the race to catch up, and let's be honest, to surpass them, the United States decided that basically nothing was off the table. And that fear, it gave birth to the first chapter in our story, a direct and often brutal quest to forcibly manipulate human consciousness. And we're not talking about gentle persuasion here. This was about breaking and rebuilding the mind itself. The official term for this is PSYOPs, or psychological operations, and it's a core concept in warfare. The idea is that you can actually weaponize psychology to influence how an enemy thinks and feels, and hopefully break their will to fight without ever firing a single shot. This path led the CIA to a whole series of increasingly extreme programs. It started out with Project Bluebird in the late 40s, which then morphed into the more aggressive Project Artichoke. But the most infamous one, the one you've probably heard of, was Project MKUltra, which kicked off in 1953. This became this huge, sprawling, top-secret program to master mind control. And it was so secret that when Congress started sniffing around in 1973, the CIA director just ordered most of the files to be destroyed. Poof, gone. So, what was actually in the MKUltra toolbox? Honestly, the methods were just shocking. We're talking about giving LSD to American citizens who had no idea they were part of an experiment. They messed around with hypnosis, electroshock therapy, sensory deprivation. The ultimate goal, and this sounds like it's from a comic book, was to create a real-life Manchurian candidate, a programmable assassin, an agent they could have total hypnotic control over. This quote from one of the experimenters, it just reveals the absolutely chilling mindset behind these programs. They justified what they were doing by targeting people on the absolute margins of society. Drug addicts, prisoners, people in mental health clinics. They saw them as disposable. It was just a horrifying chapter, all driven by fear and a complete, utter disregard for human life. But as the era of brute force mind control started to fade, the quest for influence didn't end. Not at all. It just got a whole lot smarter. A new, much more subtle science was starting to emerge, one that didn't want to break the mind, but to gently guide it, using these predictable little patterns in our own psychology. This is where the work of psychologist Robert Cialdini comes in. He identified these 6 principles that are basically the fundamental levers of human persuasion. Think of them as mental shortcuts that we all use to make decisions. From that feeling that you owe someone a favor to that powerful urge to just follow the crowd. These principles are powerful, they're predictable, and as we're about to see, they are highly exploitable. And if you want to know just how powerful these levers are, just take one of them, social proof. Neuroscientists literally put people into brain scanners, and they found that when you disagree with a group, your brain activates the same region that processes physical pain. It literally hurts to be the odd one out. That's how deeply wired we are to conform. It's incredible. And all of this, it brings us right to today. The quest for influence hasn't gone anywhere. It's just moved to a brand new battlefield. Those brutal experiments of the past have been replaced by something way more sophisticated and way more scalable: hyper-persuasion. So what is this new approach? It's called hyper-persuasion. And what it does is it takes that science of influence we just talked about, and it combines it with massive data sets and artificial intelligence. The goal is no longer to send one message to everyone, but to deliver a perfectly tailored message at the perfect time, designed specifically for you. I mean, just look at how the entire game has changed. Old school psyops, they targeted whole armies with things like radio broadcasts and dropping leaflets from planes. Today, hyper-persuasion targets you, an individual voter or consumer, with a single ad on your phone. The scale isn't just regional, it's global. And the feedback isn't slow, it's instant. It's measured in every click and every like. And this is not a theory. Cambridge Analytica showed the entire world how this works. They harvested data, they used simple social media likes to build these incredibly accurate personality profiles, and then they targeted people with ads that were designed to push their specific emotional buttons and influence their behavior. It was basically a modern digital psyop. But it is so important to understand that this playbook isn't just for elections. The core techniques manipulating emotions have been tested on a much, much broader scale, on people who had absolutely no idea they were part of an experiment. Take a look at this number, 693,000. What on earth could that represent? That is the number of Facebook users who, back in 2012, were part of a secret experiment. Researchers deliberately messed with their news feeds. They showed one group more positive stuff and another group more negative stuff. And the result? They proved that emotions could be spread across a network like a virus. They actually called it massive-scale emotional contagion. So all of this leads to a really critical question for all of us. In this new environment, how do you even know if you're being played? The good news is, by understanding the playbook, you can actually start to recognize the moves. Here's the fundamental story. The goal of influence has shifted. It's no longer about the physical coercion, the iron fist of MKUltra. It's about subtle psychological nudging, guiding your decisions in ways you might not even notice. So how do you spot it in the wild? Well, think back to those principles. When you get offered a free ebook, is that reciprocity trying to make you feel obligated? When an ad shows you thousands of happy customers, is that social proof? That countdown timer on a shopping website, classic scarcity. And when your feed just seems to be full of outrage, you have to ask yourself, is this real or is this emotional contagion by design? The quest to influence the human mind is not some relic of the Cold War. It is a central feature of our digital lives. The methods have evolved from brutal to sophisticated, from physical to algorithmic. So the final question isn't whether the game is being played. It is. The real question is, now that you know the playbook, can you spot the players?